Thank you for the question. Yeah, absolutely, there are intellectual property mechanisms within the continent to protect our stories, our narratives. And in terms of narratives, it's very important for us, even before we think about the global audiences, to always remember that we should own our stories. We should always, before sending them out there, even when we're collaborating with people from other countries, in the global perspective, I would seek guidance on what the global perspective is. But it's always important to protect our intellectual property, always own it, always have it within our countries and our continent, archive it within our countries and our continent, and that's the whole spectrum of intellectual property protection. So there's copyright, owning the stories, and there's the trademark, like the titles of things, the names of things. And yeah, so yeah, it's very important that as we think about taking our narrative elsewhere, that we also own our narrative in the legal way and in the social way and in the cultural way as well.
Thank you so much. To you, Tamre. We are talking about African narratives in a global cinema, and we are always looking at Hollywood up there in the world that as a center for the film production, major production, cinema. My question is, what are your thoughts on the best ways to take the African narratives to the levels of the Hollywood and beyond?
Always start with that. Well, first of all, I would say that we should stop looking to Hollywood. Stop looking at Hollywood. Let Hollywood do what Hollywood does. Yes, it is a dominant machine. It is a globally dominant machine, but it doesn't mean that we have to look to them. We can look inward, and I think maybe we're at a point where African filmmakers, African creatives are beginning to do just that, which is essentially ignoring the noise around the so-called African narrative on the global stage. I no longer care about what the narrative, what the African narrative is on the global stage. I don't care what anybody else thinks of Africa. It's really what we think of Africa, right? That's coming inside of us, as opposed to what I often hear from African filmmakers, especially upcoming African filmmakers, when I ask why are you becoming a filmmaker, and often I hear the very common answer is, I want to change the global perspective of Africa. And then I say, that's what everyone understands. What does that even mean? What is a global perspective? What is a global view of Africa? And I know what they're referring to. When you go back 40 years, when we had that USA for Africa with Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and Lionel Richie. We are the world. We are the children. Some of us are old enough to remember that. And 40 years later, it's almost like we could still probably sing that same song because that is still the narrative. So it's essentially it's time to, number one, stop caring about what the global narrative of what the global African narrative is, and look inward, whether it's within your own community, within your own city, within your country, within the continent itself, whether it's cross-cultural, cross-border collaborations, regional collaborations. And really, I think as Sharon said, being as authentic and true to who you are as possible, and stop mimicking what you've seen from the US. Stop mimicking what you've seen from Europe. Stop mimicking what you've seen from especially South Korea, these days with the K-dramas, which are becoming increasingly popular in parts of Africa anyway. And it's impossible to forget what you've been essentially trained on, we could say, as someone who was born in Nigeria but grew up primarily in the United States. I cannot disengage, I cannot detach myself from the influence that American cinema, European cinema, Asian cinemas had on me, because that was the food that I ate growing up, and that actually what made me want to get into cinema. But so the damage is done, we could say. We can't go back. But what we can do is we can sort of assess where we are currently, And from that assessment, take what we've learned from everyone else. Take what we've learned from what's been essentially imposed on us, we could say. And from that, add our own sort of spice and our own sort of authenticity as much as we can. And then I think um, from that combination of ingredients, something will emerge. And that is, I guess, as close to what we can call African authenticity. Um, so I would say ignore the noise, look inward, and try to find something that is truly coming from you and not mimicking what you've seen elsewhere.
Now we have the challenge there with the topic that we are looking out there and he's telling us we should start looking inwards. Sharon, you spoke about having authentic stories, cultures, as African narratives. And the issue is, what do we want the world to see from Africa? Is what the world is seeing from Africa. Normally, I would rephrase the question, the filmmakers would like to portray a certain look of Africa as African narrative cultures. And the question is the image the filmmakers portray or telling the world about Africa authentic, or the real, say, African narrative?
Thank you for the question. We can't really look the stories out there, as to say. The stories that filmmakers in Africa have to show, and the stories that they have to tell have been very diverse. And each filmmaker from each country, based on their experience, based on what it is that they want to tell the world, has proved to be different. And I can say yes. I can say that there's been, over the past years, filmmakers have found, like before, you'd find that we have the narratives, basic Cinderella story, whether it's love interest or whether it's the basic, what we thought film should be. And now we find that filmmakers are digging deeper, wanting to tell more about who we are as a people, why we are the way we are, and what needs to change for us to be a better people. So I wouldn't necessarily group that there's one image that we're portraying. I can say that there's diverse stories out there, and all of them equally need the attention.
As a follow-up question, we have having so many debates whether we should consider Africa as a group of 55 member states, or Africa as a continent with independent member states. From the filmmakers' perspectives, when we want to tell these stories, which of the two dichotomies we are looking at to call African narrative?
I think at the end of the day, when you listen to these stories, or you see these stories, there's a core to them that kind of connects us all. There's a need for us to want change. There's a need for us to want unity in different communities. So maybe the stories might be different, but at the core of it, we are all the same. Across the world, not only in Africa, but across the world, there's a message that we want to put out there.
Thank you. Because normally when the story comes about the poverty, wars in Africa, people are saying those are member states issues, but not the true picture of the continent. And when the good story comes from Africa, then we change the narrative. We say, you see, Africa is moving. So I'll come back to that question when we are talking about African narratives. To you, Linda, we have creative people here, the scriptwriters, those who aspire to go to the global film market. What will you be? What will be when people don't give advice for boredom, but for this context, what will be your advice to the young people, to those who want to get into the industries, when it comes to producing content or narratives from Africa to the global market?
That's a very heavy question. But yeah, I'll do my best to answer it. So, generally, as a creative, as you're creating things, there's legal elements, and within the legal elements, there's the moral aspect of it, especially with the stories you're creating and intellectual property. So, for example, if you have a story that or a film that you want to take out there, maybe or no, for example, what you said about YouTube. So primarily the initial thing you need to ensure that you own the story. First of all, you have the intellectual property right of this story as a producer, as a screenwriter, or whatever arrangements you have within yourself. If you have the right contracts to sort of ensure that even as I put this thing out there in the world, let's take YouTube as a use case. The story, I know who owns the story. The music, I know who owns the music within the story. There's also the element of makeup artists. Makeup artists also own intellectual property in the work that we, whether it's special, what is special makeup they do with the face. That's still intellectual property that you need permission from these people to hear from them before you put the thing out there. So there's all these other things. Sometimes even the fashion, the clothes that you put in the film, someone is a fashion who owns some rights in that. So it's always important in all your contracts with every single person on set who has a creative input into your process that you make sure that they've given you certain rights to do what you need to do, and to what platforms they've given you the rights to do it. So the issue of the takedown. And they have given you the rights to use my face or my image or my story or my makeup on when you stream on cinemas. But when you put it on a digital platform, I haven't given you the rights to do that. So that's when I'll do a takedown notice. Same with the music. So always make sure all the rights are cleared properly. And also even as you take your films out there, whether it's through a co-production, which is sort of what most global platforms, most like taking the narrative to the global platform is, like you're working with people from other countries. So make sure you understand the dynamics with the rights you own when you take them out there, and how much of what you have you can give away and how you can give it away. There are different ways to give it away. You can give it away temporarily, you can give it away permanently, you can decide to give them the rights to screen in that country, maybe Netherlands, but you give the rights to show the film in your country and other African countries. I hope I've answered the question properly.
Thank you so much. I will allow, because I know the legal issue is now a serious issue with the creative people, and please be ready to receive more questions from that end. Tambed, we are talking, you said we should look inwards and pick the best we have and believe in ourselves, because co-creation, co-production is how the world is moving nowadays. And to your opinion, what advantages do the filmmakers in the continent have to go beyond their country boundaries using technology, not only to narrate the stories, but to earn a living, a decent living, and making profit from the African narratives?
Well, I mean, my opinion may be unpopular at this point, but I don't think we're at the point where we can actually start talking about earning a living from making a movie. Sorry to say that, but that is just a fact. We're not quite there yet, but there's so much more foundational, fundamental, systemic issues that we have to first resolve. Look, I'm not saying that you cannot make money from creating, I'm going to differentiate between creating content and making films. You could probably make a living creating content. I know that there are many YouTube channels, that are Nigerian, South African, maybe Kenyan, possibly Rwandan as well, with millions of followers, and they're monetizing their channels.